Do you know, if there's a better ornamental Acer, I think it's Acer palmatum, and if there's a better one in Nottinghamshire, or an older one in Nottinghamshire, quite frankly, I'd like to see it. It's an absolute superb tree, and tucked away in a nice little spot, a quiet spot, full of people, but they're all not with us anymore. This is the old part of Retford Cemetery. It's a lovely quiet spot, and I featured this place on this channel several times. It has a super collection of very old mature conifers and some really old mature trees. It's also close to the main North East railway line, I believe. And trains such as that one go by about once every 5-10 minutes. It's just a beautiful place, and it's turned up some really good invertebrates too, all on these older stones. But it's this Acer that really steals the show here. There's been a number of people just walking the dogs around this bit. I'm sure they don't even glance at this tree. It really is an absolute stunner. Just coming out now, as you can see, so the foliage is at a beautiful light green. In the autumn, it's a stunning example. Interesting how different parts of the tree are opening up at different times. The branches that are nearest and lower down in the centre of the tree, those leaves on those branches are out twice as much as the branches and leaves elsewhere on the tree. It's the very uppermost limits of this tree where the leaves are barely even opening from the buds. But it's just a beautiful tree. It's a lovely quiet spot. Well visited today, although today is a Saturday morning, but there's a lot of invertebrates here. And the more times I visit, the more times I turn things up. But what's also here is this. Peace and quiet, birdsong, very much like being in a woodland. And in this part of Retford Cemetery, there are flowers that are indicative that at one time there was some woodland here. I mentioned a while ago that many insects are starting to take flight here in Retford Cemetery, but we're still waiting for the likes of these larval cases to hatch, which won't be too long as we get a decent temperature. We're now in the middle of April, so any time these cases will start to hatch. There's one here and there's one just over here as well. And these are the cases of Darlica triquitrella, one of 3 species of Psychidae moth that is found here. Typically on these old gravestones, and any gravestones which have any kind of carving or a lip on which the larva can climb and then pupate in the late autumn to emerge as wingless moths in the early spring. These gravestones attract a range of things, and I've just had a quite remarkable second record. A few minutes ago, just before I filmed the last section on that stone there, I'd seen a spider, an all black spider scurrying over the top here and starting to go down there. I saw it, and it was one of them moments when I thought, well, it can't be. But it was. I thought it might be the spider Zelotes latreillii, which is normally a spider that you'd see racing across open ground in heathland. The last time I looked, we're nowhere near any heathland here. And it was the manner of the spider's movements, the unhurried movement, more unhurried than Zelotes, or my experience with Zelotes spiders. And that made me start to think, well, it can't be. And so you're thinking, well, what can't it be, Trev? Well, a couple of days ago, in fact, it was yesterday, I went back down to Nottingham to Woodthorpe Park to release the harvestman Dicranopalpus lavatus. While I was there, I thought I'll try and find something to take back, some material to take back and sort through last night, knowing that the night was going to be awful weather-wise. And from a mixture of larch needles and bits of grass, I managed to scrape together half a carrier bag full of material to sort through from underneath a group of larches. In that carrier bag sample was a spider that was new to me. There's not been that many records, and it's Drassyllus pusillus, one of those names that quite rolls off the tongue. To my surprise, I took some photos of the black spider here, and that too turned out to be Drassyllus pusillus. Quite amazing, and in all the years I've been looking for spiders and other invertebrates, I don't think there's many occasions where I've found a species new personally and then promptly gone and found it the next day. There's been instances where that's come close, but I think this is quite a remarkable coincidence. But Drassyllus pusillus, I'll put some photos in. It's all black. It's less manic than Zelotes latreillii, and probably a touch smaller. This one was the same size as the one yesterday, and I think it was an adult female. But it's the tarsus and metatarsus on all of the legs of Drassyllus that are a light brown. The rest of the spider is black. On the top of the abdomen and running down the length of the abdomen, from certain angles you can make out a quite distinct paler, almost purplish bar. But in general, day-to-day appearance, unless if you've not photographed it, that's hard to see. And so are the lighter tarsi and metatarsi. So, two records of the same species, the first ever for me, within the space of 24 hours. I think that's quite remarkable. So, see what else we can find on what is a truly beautiful spring day now. Large stones such as greystone, and not the granite one, but you need the older stones like these, the sandstone ones or limestone ones. They're more attractive to invertebrates, largely because they're easier to walk on because they're rough, but also they warm up better than the granite ones seem to do. And always tucked within these cracks and crevices on these stones are ladybirds. Great places to look for ladybirds, especially as we're under a stand or a row of Norway maple. But this, of course, is 7-spot ladybird, Coccinella septempunctata. Seen quite a few, but not the numbers that I have done in the past. I do love a ladybird, and I do like the old 7-spot. And attracted out by the developing warmth of the spring sunshine is this. This is hawthorn shieldbug, one of the UK's largest shield bugs, to be honest. Very common, and despite the name, not restricted to hawthorn by any means. In the garden at home, I have lilac, and this species is often found on lilac, but it will turn up on a range of bushes and trees. They overwinter as adults, and this one's been tucked away somewhere, probably in the leaf litter, but the usual spot I've found these overwintering in has been under loose bark. So it's always a species that you can keep an eye out for during the winter months. So that's hawthorn shieldbug. They're a cracking species, beautifully marked. The Americans call shieldbugs stink bugs. And the reason they call shieldbugs stink bugs is that particularly certain species, if you pick them up, they exude or release a fluid, and you can't get rid of the smell of that fluid for hours. It's a real musty, very unpleasant, heavy smell. I'm trying to think which species is worst for it, but there's several that will do it. So it's something you've just got to be aware of if you pick these up. They won't bite you or anything like that, but they will make you smell. It's a cracking place. And say, if you look largely in this older part, there's a wealth of things to find here. But like anywhere, you shouldn't go out anywhere with a aim of finding lots of rare stuff. Otherwise, life's going to be so disappointing that way. Just getting out is the key. And this is a lovely place. Some of you might think it's morbid, full of death and all that, but cemeteries aren't. The older cemeteries, yeah, there's the remains of hundreds of people, but those remains of hundreds of people and the habitat that the graves and the old graves and the trees and the planting around those graves creates more than makes up for it. In fact, rather than being full of death, they're actually full of life.